In reality, only a select few individuals hold the power of influence. Not a pounce over a luxury item never to be owned, but real influence over police, governments, and even clandestine fraternities. My true story is so controversial that I invite you to comment and even question my integrity. Episode 11. Building Matters. My heart was in my chest. It felt like it was out of my chest. The pain was excruciating. We were flying along, the noise of the ambulance whirring around. My mother had calmed a little after being comforted by the amazing ambulance crew. "You're going to be okay, Darren. Just hold on. We're at the hospital now," I heard a voice. My eyes were closed. I was trying to take breath. The pain calling out. Then as the morphine took shape, relief for a second or two, and then again. I was rushed directly inside the hospital, straight through to the operating theatre. In my unconscious, semi-comatose way, a huge room, clinical, sounds obvious, doesn't it? I thought I was in a place that you might think an alien would take you when abducting you. Huge open space, cameras, TVs, monitors, very friendly faces. "Hello, Darren, how are you feeling?" inquired the surgeon. He couldn't have been the most chilled man you'd ever met. Done this hundreds of times, thousands even. Relaxing, professional, highly professional. "I hear you've had a bit of a scare, and don't worry, we're going to look after you and make things right. Now, groin or under the arm?" I looked at him as he placed the morphine into me and inserted the stainless steel stent. "Oh, that's better. No more pain," I said. I was in intensive care for about 4 days and wired up like a machine. I was well cared for and rehabilitated for release. Once able to take some steps, I felt as if I'd been filleted. Nothing inside, shame, strange feeling, shell of a man. And yet as I stumbled down the hallways a little further each hour, I was hopeful for the future, as I had a pending court appearance in the family courts to attend to and a broken heart to mend. That's how my mum put it anyway. She was of the belief, and I suppose so am I, that this heart attack, broken heart after losing my daughter. The female GP who moved me from her parking space often joked about that day when I was released. It is, however, no joking matter that our NHS are undervalued and underpaid. So if this message has any bearing, please pay them. Pay them properly, and our future doctors for what they ask for. As believe me when I tell you, they do save lives. It's hard to imagine that, aged just 36 years old, I'd be having a stent fitted, a heart attack. Was it the pressure? Was it the smoking, the drinking, the partying, the womanising, owning many companies? The pressures of a murder case, family to... What was it? It was everything. And family history, heart, angina. I had every box ticked on the form. As I sat back, I wondered, the planning data, I wonder if it still existed. I wonder if my old contact would help me. It always seemed to put me right back on my feet, and I really needed it. Tara knew exactly how my business model worked. She knew of the data. She used it. I let her. How stupid. I had no idea how to find Shelley and receive any remuneration from the share of our tech platform. So I thought to have a fresh start and incorporate a new limited company, aptly named Building Matters. With my knowledge, the data, a polished website, and a short period of time, I was again winning contracts and moved out of my mum's, which I was very grateful for, and into a rented luxury apartment with a stunning riverside development at 63 Kingfisher House, Battersea Reach, London, SW18. 3 large bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, dressing room, long balcony overlooking the River Thames and towards Chelsea, and then further into the city of London. I felt a little more human again and had space to relax. More importantly, Paul was somewhere near the end of his sentence and had been moved into a hostel in Chadwell Heath, Essex, so that he could merge back into society. The hostel was no better than a similar extension to the hospital we had been in previously. But importantly for me, Paul was allowed to stay overnight at my new home. I furnished the room just as he wanted it, 42-inch plasma TV at the end of his bed, access all areas to the place, come and go, keys, everything. 3 bedrooms and my belongings out of storage. Mum and I had made headway with the administration of documents. We were looking for further evidence. We had recreated a scale model of the bar and placed stickers resembling the CSI forensic crime scene as we went through each of the witness statements. Whilst unable to mention the detailed particulars of family proceedings, I think it only right to make a mention of some evidence of collusion, which was initiated by Tara, and something that may shed a little light on my intuition of covert operations. I arrived in the court for the family court hearing, and I was astonished when I looked up to see Tara talking with Shelley. Dumbfounded is an understatement. Yes, that's right, there's something to be said for intuition, but this element of my story is only in its infancy. Tara had never met with Shelley. She didn't know her name, or so I thought. There were no references, numbers, or otherwise communication in my paperwork or belongings, so she couldn't have found it there. To give any inclination as to who she was or where to find her, look, unless, I thought, was this connection assisted from the police or other serious investigative authorities? And for those who may have been mentioning or monitoring me. Why me? Why are they monitoring me? I'm only looking at a case of corruption, aren't I? Why would they be interested in me? Tara would have never found Michelle Louise Colbrand, Shelley. And even with this remoteness and the absence of any explanation, the purpose of Shelley's attendance was to rubbish me and stop me seeing my princess. Her case, or her evidence, was a ripped-up Christmas card, I know. And her claim was that I was irrational because when she gave me a Christmas card, I ripped it up. Fortunately, this judge saw through it and kicked her out of the court. But as I was in the court, attending the hearing, as soon as Shelley was out the door, she would disappear again, and I couldn't trace her and ask her where my share in the business was being held. I soon discovered that she moved to Australia, New South Wales, with her new Australian husband, Mr. Craig Colbrand, to set up a tech development company and one of the first cloud applications for mortgage brokers, now enjoyed by their company Simple Operating Solutions based in New South Wales. These people really wanted a piece of me, didn't they? Why was Tara acting like this? What were her motives? All right, we split up and she was upset and, a woman scorned, I get it. Tracking someone down, bringing them to court? Or was she not tracked down? Was she part of a group that met regularly? I just couldn't put my finger on that bit. Operation Westminster. What's in it? Tara had everything in her control. Our child, funds from the sale of our property, and was still doing all she could to bring me down. I needed to concentrate on work and manage Tara's antics as a side point. Building matters, set up accounts with builders merchants such as Hitchcock and King in Fulham, great trade business, and other trade accounts with Magnet, the kitchen and joinery company, their office based in Fulham. It was whilst opening a trade account with Hitchcock and King that I met with their salesman, John Clements, and further, a Mr. Paul Cooper, who was just head of sales at Magnet. The reason I was setting up these accounts was in preparation for Building Matters' first contract, which was a loft conversion on the property of Mr. Alistair and Mrs. Meter Gunn in Devereux Road, London, SW11, just between the commons. I was sitting at my computer one day in my apartment when I received a call from Paul Cooper. Hi Darren, can I interest you in some products at excellent prices? Would you mind if I pop round to discuss this with you? Why not? I replied. With an hour or two, Paul was at my home in his smart casual attire, handing me what appeared to be a coloured flyer. Portrait in orientation, headed Best Prices Guaranteed, capital letters. Underneath was a list of most used materials and very good prices. There was about a dozen different most commonly used materials: plasterboard, plywood, MDF, Celotex insulation. I told Paul that the prices seemed very good and I was interested in buying them. I asked for a couple of days to consider the offer and phoned John Clements to ask for his opinion. God, they're all good prices, mate, but you know what? That plasterboard is very keen. If I were you, I'd ask Paul if Magnet would sell at large volumes and the cost of transport on full or part loads. All right, I will. I called Paul a short time after and put John's questions too. Paul rightly told me that he would make all the relevant checks to his head office and come back to me. It didn't take much longer after that the reason for the flyer, it was explained, was to attract new business and without any limits on the volume of purchase. I called and relayed this to John, who said, "Look, you're going to need something in writing just to secure this up, mate. And then after you get that, if you get that, buy as much of that plasterboard as you can get your hands on, because it's going to sell like hotcakes. You will make a fortune, and I've already got people in mind for it." All right, I phoned Paul again and asked him to come back and discuss the particulars of the agreement to buy Magnet's goods, and the terms were formalised as follows. All prices below agreed for 12 months from the 18th of April 2008 as condition of account in the name of Cut Above the Rest Limited being opened as a goodwill gesture. No limit of goods or area covered. Free delivery. 2 to 3 day lead time on delivery. Account holders only. Signed on behalf of Magnet Paul Cooper. MD Cut Above the Rest Limited Darren. Witnessed by John Clements. Cut Above the Rest Limited and Abode West Limited were two additional companies that I had plans for regarding the expansion and the use of planning data, and available to trade Magnet contracts were formally agreed by Magnet's authorised representative of each of these companies. Copies were made available and confirmed the account opening and that the head office had approved the agreement, all on headed paper, kosher. A few days later, Paul returned with an additional flyer, similar to the first, this time adding more products, such as gypsum plaster, foil back plasterboard, chamfered edge plasterboard, all at the same excellent prices. The same terms was agreed and signed to just as before. John mentioned the potential for international trade of these goods, so I asked Paul the question, and he again agreed to the same goods and extending the period of the contract from 12 months to 24 months. No cost for delivery on 4 loads, he said, and wrote down, and signed and agreed to it. So the ability to drop the materials directly to the ports in the UK and export them was on. This would have made a hugely positive difference to the British economy, and all the correct arrangements and procedures had been approved. It was time to trade. I asked John if he was interested in leaving Hitchcock & King and joining my companies to sell Magnet trade goods, and he agreed. He worked from my luxury apartment. He had agreed to supply Go Interiors, a company that traded in plasterboard, had letters of intent of 10 to 15 boards per day, and another company, and as the board was Canal for high quality products, everyone was calling John a buyer and his phone rang off the hook. John then received a call from someone claiming to be the director of Canal. He passed the phone to me. Darren, I'm the director of Canal. Look, I've heard about your deal to sell our plasterboard, and I'll be doing everything in my power to close your companies down. The prices you're selling our board for is manufacturer price, and we could be out of business if allowing you to proceed. John shrugged his shoulders at me and continued to sell and arrange delivery of the 4 loads to Go Interiors head office. As Go Interiors are the largest independent specialist and distributor of construction interiors sector. It was once the delivery landed that we received the call from Mark Price of Magnet, stating that the contracts were cancelled with immediate effect. More of the courts, I thought. Contract now. Criminal, family, and now contract. But having never had a contract dispute, I needed an expert. I was referred to speak with a Mr. David Sinclair, FCA, of Sinclair Associates, Roman Road, 296 Golders Green Road, NW11. I travelled to meet David at his office and explained the situation. He said it's obvious Magnet thought it easier to stop or breach the contract rather than allow it to continue. They would, a short time, been out of business. What the contract you had, as you well know, is that Magnet would supply you with an unlimited amount of plasterboard at the same price as Canal for manufacturing it. In addition, you had free delivery anywhere in the UK on 4 loads. So you would have filled lorries up with plasterboard, sent them all around the country, made a fortune, and even shipped them. Sent the lorries to the ports and had the plasterboard sent internationally. You'd have cleaned up. I've got a good lawyer for this, and I'll arrange a meeting with him. He's based down in Chancery Lane. I arranged a meeting with Mr. David Green, a solicitor at the firm of Edwin Co. Solicitors at 2 Stone Buildings, Lincoln's Inn. David came with credentials, and this was a case suited to him. David was appointed the Lord Chancellor of the Civil Procedure Rules Committee in 1997. He was then appointed in 2002 as a member of the Civil Justice Council, the author of the Civil Procedure Rules and associate editor of the Civil Practice Manual. He was on the editorial board of Butterworth's, the Civil Court Practice, the Green Book, contributor to the Law Society's Civil. It goes on. This guy was mustard. David liked the potential claim, and whilst it wasn't a slam dunk, he was more positive than not, and asked David Sinclair to draft a report on quantum to estimate the level of damages to my companies and, along with my vested interest, the dividends and profits and the amount owed to me. David Green was excited and asked to return to arrange a conference with counsel on the merits of the claim, as there would be a need to have the support of a litigation funder, a company to fund the legal case for me, as these costs of legal fees could run into £1 million. This was also something he said that he could arrange, and subject to quantum merits all being aligned, he said it all sounds very positive. A one-stop shop, eh? David Sinclair's report was interesting. I quote, I refer to our discussions and our preliminary review. This note is not intended to limit the level or extend the company's claims. It has not been subject to any detailed review or verification as an initial memorandum only. It should not be relied upon as evidencing the level of or limit of claim, which could be higher or considerably less. This memorandum cannot be produced for evidential purposes. The claim relates to the loss of potential profit suffered by the company as a result of Magnet's refusal to supply materials on terms that the company considered were agreed and contracted between Magnet and themselves at fixed prices for a period of up to 3 years. The initial markup on products being sold by the company was up to 75%, giving gross margin of around 43%. And whilst this margin may well have maintained at lower volumes, it's inevitable that the margin may have shrunk to, say, 20%. I'm advised that the indicative business levels of at least 100 million per quarter from one customer were promised. I will assume that other businesses across the UK would double that sales volume, a total of 800 million per annum, or 2.4 billion over 3 years. I'm ignoring any export potential as the company may well have suffered extra distribution costs. 100 million times 4 quarters, then doubled for other sales at a 20% margin, creates an annual margin of 160 million. As the businesses were to be in effect a wholesaling business with no stock holding or delivery, nor administration costs, these would have been relatively low, at the 2 to 3% level, or even lower. Any claim would need to take into careful consideration the ability of the company to operate at these levels, the risk of competition from Magnet, who could undercut and erode the company's margins, economic, industry and commercial considerations, financial ability and the company, and numerous other factors. Even if the margins were drastically eroded to 5% level and aggregate sales were only 1 billion rather than 2.4 billion, the loss to these companies would have been £50 million. Obviously, it could have been considerably higher or lower. Further in detailed assessment of the losses will be provided as required. We are not expressing any opinion as to the legal and contractual validity of the claim, and we trust that this is sufficient guidance for the time being. Naturally, we will be pleased to assist you further. I was then introduced to a Mr. Anthony Metzer, now KC, then at 23 Essex Street Chambers. His advice on the merits were positive. When he concluded, above 70%, David Sinclair and I went back to Chancery Lane to meet David Green after sending him the quantum and the positive advice on merits from Mr. Metzer of Council. "This all looks very positive, doesn't it, Darren?" he began as he made us all coffee before sitting in the conference room at his firm looking out of the Georgian windows into Lincoln's Inn. "Coffee cup in hand," he said, "this case will need significant funding, and an estimate of which is around £1 million. It will also require a heavyweight barrister to lead. I've got someone in mind, and I may be able to arrange a visit with him if you were ready for that." It seemed he already had. Mr. Sinclair had to leave for another appointment as David Green and I walked around to Ely Place and the chambers of Mr. William McCormack, QC, to meet with the man himself. Mr. McCormack was the head of chambers at the time at Ely Place, and we were invited into his office and sat opposite his desk as he flipped through the papers. He'd obviously received copies from Mr. Metzer's advice, Mr. Sinclair's quantum, and David Green's brief. He then looked up from his desk and said, "I like it. It has all the key ingredients of a contract and its repudiation. If I was asked to place my feelings in advice on the merits of this case, I might have to say 60%. You know that's important to a potential funder, don't you?" I didn't, but now I do. It all seemed very positive, and I still had building matters to manage and run. I left and went back home and went round to see Meter's loft conversion. I'd contracted with 4 Polish labourers and along with some indentured tradesmen carried out some of the work. One of the Polish labourers had a prominent tattoo on the back of his head. Bizarre one. He had like a tattoo of the wife of the cartoon character, Aga the Horrible, named Helga. Strange, I thought. Towels and everything tattooed on the back of his head. If he was walking along, you'd think it was a woman walking away from you. Helga. Very strange. You can't miss him. Meter would also make some strange comments. "Have you ever had any covert security services before?" Other things were really odd. We passed these off as just bored housewife syndrome. Her husband was a lawyer, she told me, and had a spray of legal books across the large dining room table for most of the time we were there. Meter and Alistair gave my company a glowing reference to the next client, Mr. Scott Jameson and Miss Kerry Wilkinson, then of Bloemfontein Road in Shepherd's Bush, who also wanted a loft conversion. Next, they gave another positive reference to another client of ours, Mr. Tom Cock. He had some proposed works in Kensington. They were more decorative and other minor works. So happy was Meter and Alistair, they gave these amazing references. So good were the references to both the Jameson-Wilkinson contract completed, as did Mr. Tom Cock's contract. Scott was a slim white male, aged in his 30s with a bald head, and he worked at the time for Cisco Systems. So we called him the Cisco Kid. He was something of a whiz kid with cyber security, according to him. Kerry was then the owner of a developing clothing fashion brand named Kerry Couture, although her main employment was with another company at the time and she had a desire to make some handbags or something. Kerry is now the founder and director of Kerry Kits, who makes handbags. Look her up. Next to sign up was a Dr. Omar Haddo. Dr. Haddo to everyone. He thought a lot of himself. He owned 2 houses in Seething Wells Lane in Surbiton, and he wanted to make them larger by applying double-storey extensions and a large loft conversion across the whole thing. We agreed contracts and a very detailed programme and schedule of works, which was signed off by a quantity surveyor. My father had kept a very detailed diary, meeting notes, and applied the planning drawings supplied by Dr. Haddo's chartered surveyor, Stoddart's. The works commenced, and whilst carrying out groundworks, we discovered that most of this place was made up ground. It was all falling in when we were digging out the foundations. We had a JCB excavator pull out the foundations, had to put in steel sheet, acros, props, and basically just make sure we could fill the foundations with the footings. We got the brickwork up, the roof was up, and everything seemed to be going well. Then all of a sudden the neighbour came over, looking up, next door neighbour, and started shouting something. So I looked at her, I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "That ridge height's too high." I looked at this plans in the planning stage and it was nowhere near as high as that. I'd have never agreed. No, it's built to the plan, so give me a minute, mate, and I'll have a look for you. Went down, got the plans out, got a scale rule, measured off, went back with tape, measured it all up. Oh, it's bang on. What had happened behind the scenes was that Stoddart's had swapped the drawings. They had handed me an amended version of the planning drawings, which added another metre to the height of the ridge. It was so obvious over such a huge roof across 2 buildings that the neighbour saw it immediately. I went and saw Dr. Haddo and I said, "Look, Stoddart's, your surveyor's got this wrong. I've just checked online and the drawings are completely different to the ones you supplied us, the working drawings. We put the roof on the roofer's area. It's nearly finished. There's a stage payment of about 30 grand owing." He knew what he'd done, and he was embarrassed to have been found out. What we didn't know was that the local authority had written to Dr. Haddo and stopped the works until further notice, according to the neighbour. Complaint. Dr. Haddo had nowhere to go, so he repudiated the contract, didn't pay, and then made an application to the local authority to raise the ridge height, which was approved. He didn't mention any of this to me, and the debt remained outstanding. I then had a meeting with a new inquiry, Tom Clark. I met in the cubbyhole home office at his palatial home in Kensington. Adams throughout. Mr. Clark had a glass of wine in one hand and building plans in the other. It's all relatively straightforward. Wallpapering, painting, decorating, some varnish to the stairs, works on the rear parapet wall, and as the evening drew on, I left Tom's home and went for another appointment. With the notes from Clark's meeting safely stowed away, I headed down to Fulham to meet an interior designer I'd only just connected with. Her name was Janet Evanson. She was the owner of Leonard Province Interiors. I arrived at the pub first, close to her home, but before long, Janet appeared carrying 2 pints of strong lager, cloudy ale, into the beer garden. We sat in there drinking, chatting in the early evening sun, and she told me of her life living next to a naval base in the USA. Surely fucking not. No, not again. Is this the daughter of the American admiral of the fleet? I thought, fucking, what is this? It soon became clear that our connection stretched beyond the building works. We discussed in length the fried food culture of the deep south of the USA, according to her, where she'd grown up. We laughed and joked into the night, topping up the alcohol as we went on. All too soon it was time to head home, so I walked Janet a few yards to her flat in 6 Tamworth Street, SW6. Looking back, I'm sure the walk took less time than finding the key in the front door, but eventually we got it open and fell inside. We were laughing and pissed. We bounced up the stairs and then just started kissing on the landing. Before long, I was startled by this male voice. "Oh, you're home then?" Crashing back to reality, Janet quickly reverted to her businessman. I shook my hand. It's one of those things much like the Swedish, when you think you're invisible, but you're absolutely paralytic and blatant in all your stupidity. Janet trying to pretend that she'd been caught red-handed at something. I thought, okay. So to reciprocate, I also thanked her for her time, and with my, let's say, perception slightly clouded, I tripped up on the stairs and found myself sliding down the wall on the handrail. Sure, that was fun. Anyway, during the cab ride home, I was thinking about the man and thought to myself, he's got to be a flatmate, a friend, or say, a brother. Couldn't have been standing there watching us kissing if he was a boyfriend or a husband, surely. Woke up the next morning, I was properly hungover. I looked at my phone to see the message from Janet. She was apologising for last night, promising me that it would never happen again. Yeah, I said, all right, it's just saying that. Anyway, I replied to the text saying, yeah, okay, no problem. And I knew it wasn't going to be the last time. Over the next month, we kept in contact. We were just meeting up in Fulham, the farm, and other pubs, drinking cocktails, canoodling, and then 3 or 4 times a week, everything was going well. We were working our way through the bars of Hammersmith, Fulham, Kensington, Chelsea. The data company had been bought out by another company. And just at the same time, when I thought my business was going to come to an end, a Russian came and met me called Elvina Gilvanova. Now, she had a property in Belsize Park Mews, NW3. She also claimed to be the daughter of a Russian oligarch and a close friend of Mr. Putin, as she put it. My father lives with my mother in a Mayfair penthouse apartment, not in that accent, of course, overlooking the Ritz and Green Park. Then another client, Mr. Jeremy Points. He was a shipping broker from Putney. Meter had given another glowing reference from here as well. My mum would get her prescriptions from a local pharmacy, which was owned by another lady, Mrs. Bushra Nazir, on the Merton Road in Wandsworth. Bushra also wanted to have a loft conversion in Wanford Close in Coombe, near Kingston-on-Thames. One evening, Janet and I were chatting about the various projects, and we suddenly clicked. Why don't we join forces and work together? A combined construction interior design service, perhaps. We threw the idea around, and we found ourselves working all over the London boroughs, Wandsworth, Hammersmith, Fulham, Kensington, Chelsea, Richmond, refurbishing homes. We were making a good team. Janet even introduced me to 2 of her friends, Bruce and Laurie Mitchell from the US, who lived in Chiswick, and they wanted a builder. The data had proved to be the game changer, and I had to find out if anyone else was picking up on this data. Just as I was trying to work out where I could get this data from as the business was closing, I was contacted by an interior designer, Chantel Vanden Elshoot, who lived with her partner Michael Craig in Lynette Avenue, Clapham, SW4, and along with Janet were both members of the British Institute of Interior Design. By this point, Janet and I were working by day and partying all night, enjoying each other's company and the fruits of our labour. The combined design and build setup was working well with many clients, some without my data and some introduced by her. This spell of great introductions continued, and I was on my feet again. Family was enjoying everything I had, which meant that I could make the most of the very few moments and times I had with my daughter. Not only did I live in a stunning 3-bedroom Battersea apartment, but I was able to support my daughter, add to the brothers, canteens, needs, and my parents. My clothes were in better shape, Armani back in the wardrobe, and things were going well. Alas, I said, and that word, my good fortune was not to last. A few weeks later, I received a call from one of my foremen working on Clark's home. Come over here, look at this wall, Dale, mate. He said, something's wrong here. I mean, this guy was the brother of my dad's new wife. His name, or he liked to be referred to as West Ham Barry, West Ham Battle. Couple of gold hammers, earrings, 6 foot something, bald head. Bit simple, but reasonably genuine. When we removed the coping stone on the top of the brick wall, we discovered that the structure of the wall was not brick, which was stated by Mr. Clark, and, as detailed in the contract, but instead it was made of solid concrete. This wasn't an issue. All it would mean was extra costs and time for, breaking out the concrete, cutting down the structural bars, reassessing them, shuttering, repouring them, these sort of things. It wasn't unusual, but it would be cost to it. It's more work, because in the contract it was very clear that Mr. Clark and I agreed that this was a brick wall. It would have been old London stock and it would have almost fell apart. Mr. Clark knew it was a concrete wall because he'd only had it fitted a few months before. He's trying to hoodwink me, I thought. Was he playing it? He never mentioned this to me before. I decided to meet with Mr. Clark. So he returned home and I was waiting there. He had a bundle of papers under his arm with a ribbon. He placed them on the corner of his desk and he got another glass of wine. Do you want one? No thanks. I've got to drive, I said, and carried on. He went on to pour his wife, Judith, a glass. We all broached the subject of the wall and the additional costs that would incur, a significant increase compared with the agreed overall project costs. Judith had arrived after acting as the principal of the Lucy Clayton Charm Academy, a school for grooming and modelling young ladies. She stood in the doorway of her husband's office. Tom looked over at Judith with a smirk on his face. Made me feel uneasy. She mirrored the look with an equally smug expression. It just seemed that they knew this conversation was coming and intended to charm me into carrying on with the work at a lesser rate. They were conning me. Oh, come on, it's not that bad, is it? Tom said. Surely you've earned enough out of me to get over this, haven't you? Took another gulp of his wine. Now, was it not for the suspicious exchange of glances between Tom and his wife, Judith? I'd probably given him a bit of leeway. But again, my intuition was suggesting that something wasn't quite right. I'd built my businesses on data, yes, but trust, skills, honesty, reputation. Don't take too kindly to people trying to have one up on me. I'd already introduced Tom Cock to previous clients, Kerry Wilkinson, Scott Jameson, and they were all interacting with each other because the references were going between them. It is okay, isn't it, Darren? I said, well, look, actually it's not okay. And although I'm not impressed with your original information regarding the structure of the wall, the fact remains that the contract says removal of a brick wall, not the removal of a concrete wall. And we went back and forth a few times, and each time resting our positions, hardening the stance. The more I went on, the beginning to feel like Tom Clark was cross-examining me in like an interrogation, asking leading questions, making comments, trying to trip me up. My assertiveness and refusal to budge my position didn't go down well. Tom Clark grew gradually more agitated, and Judith left the scene. She was embarrassed of being involved in his little ploy. As a result, and as per the specific terms of contract, I was forced to remove all my men and materials from site after completing about 60% of the contract and receiving about 60% of the fees. But this unresolved dispute would have much farther-reaching consequences than I could have ever predicted at the time, because Mr. Tom Clark, it transpired, was not just a wealthy individual with a palatial London home. Oh no, at this time, he was a seasoned barrister. He was a senior fraud prosecutor for the Serious Fraud Office and Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs and the General Medical Council. My cross-examination, deemed a negotiation over the wall, was starting to make sense. For the first time in my professional openness and the policy of linking past, present and future clients to assure them of my service had backfired. News of the dispute with Tom Clark had somehow spread, somehow he'd obviously called them, spread through my network of clients, and I was getting an unsettled feeling of something going on behind the scenes. I wrote to Tom Clark, QC, the fraud prosecution barrister, as I now know him, offering to return men and materials to his home and continue with the contract and complete the job, as long as we continued with the contract as it was, a brick wall. Or, if he wanted work on the concrete wall, then we'd have to amend the contract, a variation. To this day, I can't help think that the conflict had something to do with the builder outsmarting the QC, and the fact that I'd uncovered his intention all along to withhold information and manipulate the situation to suit his own end. He knew the wall was made of concrete, because he just had his basement done and the wall was included. He also knew that the approximate cost of having the concrete done was much more than having the brick wall removed that was over 100 years old. Either way, he wasn't going to let me off the hook, despite contractually holding no leverage and leaving few options but for me to extract balancing funds for litigation. Here I was. On the one hand, I've got this multi-million-pound contract dispute with Magnet, and now I've got this contract dispute with Tom Clark. I'd always had a feeling that someone was pulling the strings, someone was just leaning in and placing the right people in the right time, and, I've talked about paranoia and this, because you dismiss these things. You think, it can't be. They wouldn't, just have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. I'd had all these strange references to senior naval officers, army officers, relatives of the police, informants, covert operations, with old relationships, Tara, Shelley coming together at the right time. And was it the intent to do this to me, to keep me busy, fighting them off, so that it would avoid me working on the investigation of my brother's appeal? Was it a number of things? Was it to reduce my funds so I couldn't pay any barristers or solicitors to deal with my brother's appeal? It was possibly all the above. I had senior solicitors, barristers, QCs, financial experts supporting the claims of breach of contract, validating that I had a valid contractual relationship. Why and when I was about to make money and continue to support my family, why would these commercial contracts and family matters be hampered? Was it to cause me anxiety, heart attack? Again, all these things were happening. This wasn't paranoia. I just couldn't stitch them together and point my finger at one element. Well, I couldn't then. Anyway, time passed and the Clark dispute continued. We were neither close to any agreement, so I instructed lawyers at TWM in Wimbledon who were dealing with my family matters at the time. My trusted network had let me down, as all my other clients had also stopped paying their contractual fees. They all put themselves into breach of contract at the same time. Some jobs were starting, some jobs were halfway through, some jobs were near an end, all at various stages, but the common denominator was that after the issue with Clark, all of them were playing up. So much so they all stopped paying their money. Now 10 contracts, each at 40, 50, 60 grand each, closing at the same time. That wasn't helpful to me and my living situation. Clark was using his legal knowledge to starve me out, and Janet was now remote. She disappeared. Was she playing it? She's not anywhere with me, she. She gone. I couldn't work out what was going on. Everyone was tongue-tied. Couldn't get an answer out of anyone. Paul Cooper disappeared. Is it Magnet? Is it Magnet that have got into Paul for the deal he had approved that would have put them in severe commercial turmoil? Was it all of this? Were the police aware of this and joined up to enjoy forcing all this through? There's a lot to be said for intuition. What I knew was that all my clients had stopped paying. I had no other means of earning money. I had a legal battle for millions in one hand. I had another multiple legal battle with 10 clients on another. You know, you think you're hard on your luck. The police, the government, Operation Westminster, the hand that was bringing me down, they found a common denominator. Was it that they knew that my weakness was women? Michelle got into me, Tara got into me, Lilla. There was a common denominator. These women were fucking about. I treated them well. You can hear it. Maldives, private islands, Atlantic Park, fucking here, there. Standard. So you treat women well. All right, you might date a few of them, but you still treat them well. I thought, look, I'm going to randomise the process. I don't want to give up women for the sake of this nonsense. So what I'll do, I'll join a dating agency. So I did. And I joined a dating agency called My Single Friend. And looked through the profiles and checked them out. And yeah, I found one that was kosher. Kosher being good looking. So I arranged to meet up in Marylebone for a date with someone called Jennifer or Jen. Good looking, blonde, central London. My words, not hers. It's funny that even today, this is 2008-9, 2025. I look back at her Instagram profile now. It's exactly the same photo as My Single Friend photo then. Yes, I do have a copy. I was on it. Don't worry about that. I had copies of everything. Still have. But that's how it gets you. And that's how I'm confident to bring this true story to you. Backed. Fully. Anyway, I'll move on. This is about a better story. I drove to Marylebone, parking in the high street. As this was more convenient for her, she lived there, so I heard. I found the little bar she guided me to and was introduced to Jennifer Robinson. She was very attractive, funny, smart, considerate, charming, cute, just my type. And very lucky. We discussed our lives, hopes, relationships, and banter through food and wine accompaniment. It was a lovely day. Very, very, very nice day. It was then, just as we've been joking, that she said, I've been working with Jeffrey Robertson, QC. QC? Why I keep even this word? QC, judge, police, army, military, fucking QC. I randomised this thing. Fucking, you're working with Jeffrey Robertson, whoever he is. Yes, she continued. I was blanking out at the time. We're working on the Anwar Ibrahim case in the Malaysian courts. Now, you talk about the ick. And how could I get the ick with this fucking woman? She was unbelievably lovely in every way of things. But fucking as soon as she mentioned law, the fact she was involved with the law, I was fucking done. I'd had enough of the law. My family courts, criminal courts, contract fucking, here, there, fucking all sorts of shit going down. Just done me. It turns out that Jen, is a very smart media barrister at Doughty Street Chambers. She went on to tell me that she was Julian Assange's lawyer. Fucking hell. If I haven't got enough rep around me, do I need people fucking snooping in on me because I'm dating or potentially dating Julian fucking Assange's lawyer? That was one thought. The other thought was, fuck, I could do with a barrister like you. You fucking really helped me, but I just couldn't bridge the gap. Just couldn't. Friends are. Shame. Fucking lovely. And there you go. She might have said, fucking idiot, fuck him off, or dope. But if not, then yes, it would have been lovely to have been dating this chick. I kept up the charade for an hour or so. I thought, fuck it, I left. Sad, fucking random. Even the randoms are fucking working out. Surely, this is London Chambers. Is this the Chambers of London? 7 million fucking legal and military people I fucking landed in. What happened in London? Fucking, I keep bumping into every fucker. The pressure was too much. Remember, I just had a fucking heart attack a couple of years before, although you wouldn't have thought it about when I out fucking partied. But then my mum found me, crying. Dale, you won't believe it, mate. 5 fucking massive coppers have just been round here looking for you, and you're wanted. In Birmingham. What? You alright, Mum? I'm fine. I'm just shaking up, that's all. They knocked, and when I opened the door ajar, it's evening, and they just barged in. I nearly had a heart attack. I'm still shaking. You'd have thought your mum had been enough. Taken enough from the police. They've got no fucking scruples, the wrong uns. And in their words, a job to do. Hello. I wonder what their mums might feel when I draw them out and expose them to little fucking wrong-uns. It seems I'd received an invitation to attend West Midlands Police Station for questioning on allegations of harassment. West Midlands? Fucking Michelle's dad, is it? Don't know anyone in West Midlands, Birmingham. Fucking go north of the fucking M25. You're a northern to be out above that. But nevertheless, 5-old Bill turned up. I got a call up there. I've got to go and turn up. I'll recall a fucking day, again, like it was yesterday. Sunny Saturday, cooking up. I was shorts, I was sunglasses, fucking turned up, West Midlands Police. Alright, I said in the interview room. So what are these claims against me? I haven't been told anything. The copper said the claims are 5 statements that you have intentionally set out to intimidate 5 members of the Criminal Cases Review Commission. What are you talking about? Yes, the case reviewer, commissioners, legal advisor, and another. No longer with the CCRC. 5 in all. What? Who? What? Where? I burbled out. I can't believe what's happening. Fucking hell, this is where they're trying to stitch me up, aren't they? Properly. I thought that these allegations were somehow linked to the corruption on my brother's appeal. They were occurring at the same time. I naturally put 2 and 2 together. As the copper read the 5 statements. I mean, they were identical, literally identical. The only differences were the names. Put 2 and 2 together, and as he read the 5 statements, and I all regurgitated the same phrase. We're not members of Facebook. Other than that, there wasn't any legitimate claims. I turned to the cop and said, so what's this all about then? He said, look, he said, the complainants, these senior people at the Criminal Cases Review Commission, have complained that you've hacked Facebook and discovered who they are and their families. He smiled that way. Go on, I said, fucking can't believe it. So what's my purpose supposed to be in doing all this, and what do you say I was going to do when I found them all, if this is real? I had to think fast. I knew this was a fucking fit-up. I'd only just joined Facebook a short time earlier, uploading all my Outlook contacts automatically after being prompted to do so by Facebook. I wasn't so tech-minded as I am now. Who was? So I had to give a long-lasting look at these paper pages, the exhibits, single exhibits, just an exhibit for each of them. They all had a statement, all the same statements, just changed names, exhibits, different name on them. All other than that, all the same. It's funny that I drew fucking the answer from absolutely nowhere. And I thought I'd worked out what happened. Hang on, I said. Each email's got the same words. Dear, name, different name. I would like to invite you to join Facebook, upload your videos and photos and join the networking community from Darren. I was now putting another 2 and 2 together. So I said to the officer, look, I know what's happened here. And he looked at me with a stunned and smug look. Yeah, go on, do explain then, Darren. Thinking he'd called me out. Look, I joined Facebook a few weeks ago. It was when I was registering that I was prompted by Facebook to upload all of my email contacts, and rather than go through and select one by one, I had 1,300 of them roughly. I just checked the box that said add them all, because I thought, if I've got emails, I must be talking to them at least. I've been communicating with all of these complainants at the CCRC and my brother's appeal, so I would have their email addresses. So as Facebook have fucking prompted me to upload them, I've just uploaded them. And it seems to me that Facebook have then automatically invited all these characters to join me on Facebook. Because look, in their statements, every one of them says, I'm not a member of Facebook. So Facebook would have known that through their system and fucking emailed them. You just see his fucking face. It was fucking purple. His cheeks are puffing. He fucking sat back in his chair. He didn't know what the fuck he'd do. I've got no intent. There's no intent. There's no intent. There's no fucking crime, is there? What are the acts? Let's do both, don't it? Crime, criminal act, intent, criminal mind. Latin, actus reus, mens rea. I was getting quite fucking fluent after all the reading I was doing. He looked at me and thought, what's he fucking talking about? Parrot. He fucking jumped up, his chair flying backwards. He said, I'll be back. He returned and he concluded, no further action will be taken here. Darren, you're free to go. Now look, the CCRC, they fucking investigate criminal cases. They'd have known all this, or if they hadn't, they'd have surely investigated what this was all happening. This was all nonsense, and yet John Wagstaff, the legal advisor at the CCRC, was one of the 5 complainants, along with Angela Flower and others who had intended to harass me by bringing me to Birmingham fucking Nick that day. Firing a shot across me, bloody nose, whatever you want to call it. These CCRC seniors joined forces with the police to create and implement my arrest. I had the feeling that my brother's criminal cases and the evidence I was discovering were just putting one too many establishment nose out of joint, as if I needed any more of the British justice system, although any light relief wasn't afforded me much longer. as with a failed attempt to have me convicted and incarcerated on fabricated charges of harassment. I then received a fucking letter from Hammersmith Fulham Police asking me to go to them for a fucking interview on 5 counts of fucking fraud. What is fucking going on here? I needed a solicitor, so I went to see Steve Bird of Bird Solicitors in Wandsworth High Street. Yes, he said, I can see what's happening here. He said, 5 of your clients are alleging that you've committed fraud. Committed fraud? Fucking senior fraud barrister, Tom Carr, all committing fraud? What's he on about? Yes, Scott Jameson, Kerry Wilkinson, Tom Cart QC, Bushra Nazir, Jeremy Points, Bruce and Laurie Mitchell. I think you need to make a comment. I said, well, my comment is no comment. This is all rubbish. They're in breach of fucking contract for cancelling their contracts, which must have been prompted by Tom Clark. The thrust of the complaint was that I took my client's money and fucked off. I didn't fuck off, I was working. It would seem that as I explained the truth about one matter, I had another one waiting for me. The line had been drawn in the sand. All these legal claims, allegations of fraud, harassment against the CCRC, it's all fucking too much, isn't it? The funny thing was that when we were looking into all these cases, we noticed that David Bright and he remember his friends at the trustees of his charity Convoy 2000 were very, very senior police, commanders, commissioners of the Met. Stevens, Blair, Bright, just retaining his interest, and what was his reasoning? Was it to bury the corrupt case he'd led? Was it to assist the informants in the murder case he led? What was it? I then received a call from a barrister's clerk. I can't remember his name, I wish I could. But for the purposes of description, I'll refer to him as James. Go and meet one of my clients. His name's Dan Brown. He explained that he thought he could be of some benefit to me. Now, if you think any of the other shit's strange, then this is fucking bizarre. I was given his phone number and arranged a call. Dan said, here's my address, and he owned a 18-hole private golf course. Meet me there. My house is on the estate. Anyway, I drove to meet Dan and sat outside the gated entrance, steel bars, and then it slid sideways to the right. Once I'd stopped, and almost knowing it was me, even though I'd not told him of it, I couldn't see any cameras anywhere. It's the middle of nowhere, this golf club. I was called and guided to his detached house, and Dan was waiting at the entrance. 6 feet, something baggy, partly buttoned cardigan hanging baggily, worn out, single pocket at the bottom of each side which had clipped his fingers into, trousers, slacks, loose and casual shoes, middle-aged, balding, otherwise average, lost in the crowd easily. He was Canadian, and he introduced me in those tones to his Colombian butler, chef, who had prepared lunch for us whilst we sat in the reception. Dan asked me about my background and the magnet case, covered all the points, and then he said, Darren, look, I must tell you, I've rarely heard such an interesting story. My network has proceeded with interest to ask that I meet you. I must hand it to you. You've got cojones the size of fucking bowling balls for single-handedly taking on the fucking British establishment. They're well aware of who you are and watching your every move. Really? Well, not really, but fucking really now you've told me. But funny enough, I took a sigh of relief. Partly because I had to take a puff on my GTN spray, glycerol tritinerate, if that's what it is, just to help me with the difficulty of my heart. I had pains in the chest. Fucking would have, wouldn't I? Shit was going down. I was conscious of why and that there were far too many odd things persistently going on, and for far too long. To think that I wasn't being watched and that there wasn't an intent to stop me was madness. It clearly was. But there was much more to this case. I thought I was getting somewhere. I thought things were going well, and they were. I had no idea, not fucking remotest, the foggiest of what was going down in this place. It was so big that, well, Dan then went on to tell me a bit about him. Look, as you can hopefully still hear, after many years living here, I'm Canadian. And my forefathers are the founders of modern-day Freemasonry. Freemasons now, am I? I fucking got the Freemasons on me, have I? Why not? Every other colour is. Although this was, strange, he was talking like it was just normal. The brotherhood, brethren, the bond, the ritual, and the secrecy. I know you're not a Freemason. It's obvious. We would have loved to have welcomed you into the brotherhood. What I can tell you is your ancestors were Freemasons, and we can track your genealogy back through time and immemorial. Your lunch is ready, sir. Came the broken Anglo-Latino tones from them. And then we sat down at this small table in the middle of the kitchen. Tiny table, fucking hell, it was undersized, to say the least, for the size of this kitchen. It was like a matchbox in the kitchen. Behind me was the sink and the Colombian butler hovering. You know, with the size of the house and everything else, and we all eat simple food and all the rest of it, but, you know, this guy's lunch was nowhere near extravagant. Nothing like Atlantic Bar or Toto's that I'd previously loved to enjoy. And how would it be? This lunch was a humble 1 egg omelette with a few halved and scattered vine tomatoes on top, a can of Coke for me, a tab for him, and then for dessert, one of Mr. Kipling's jam tarts. Now, he opened the box, raspberry, apricot, blackcurrant. Everyone went with a blackcurrant, didn't they? We all took a look at it, and he fucking relented and pounced on it. Then took another look as I leant for the raspberry, but he slid the box, so I picked up the fucking apricot. If you knew about these things, you'd appreciate that. It was bizarre, I thought. As we finished our little cakes, our little pastries, and he called over his buddy, he said, "Get me the book." And then he was handed a copy of Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code. Now, his name was Dan Brown. I never knew of Dan Brown. I don't know if they were, at that time, I don't know if they were both Dan Browns. The same. But it was a bizarre scenario. He got this book, and I fucking held it up. It had more yellow post-it notes sticking out of every available opening than fucking pages in the book. He explained that each post-it note was a separate issue with the content. "I'm going to be having words with this Dan Brown," he began. "Bringing my fraternity into disrepute. I won't have it." He then went on to explain that there were two worlds in existence, one non-Masons live in, and that was created by Masons and potentially led by the Jews. I said, "What do you mean the Jews? Jews and Masons?" I know it's open to everyone. What do you mean the Jews? "Well, the first and oldest lodge in the Scottish Rite," he said, "is, you see," he said, "there's a Star of David above." He said, "The Jews always used to keep their money to themselves. So they wanted to obviously corrupt the Christian fraternity. So what they did was they would give a share of their..." Well, and he went on and on. I thought, that can't be right. Jews created Freemasonry so they could control the Christians. "Is that what you're saying?" I said. He looked at me as if to say, "You got it." "Nah, it's bollocks. Not having it." Anyway, that was it really. And that's why it's so strange, because there was nothing really more to it than that. When he touched on Magnet, I thought, well, perhaps he's going to fund it. Didn't say any more about it. Instead, when we'd finished, and he finished with the nonsense he was telling me after lunch, he said, "Come on, have a walk through here." And as we walked through into his reception, his living room basically, on the left was a bedroom. Windows were closed and curtains pulled to. And he stopped for a moment. He said, "See that room there? In that room, a king abdicated the throne. In that room." He said, "And that's why there's a subdued feeling in that room. I've got this fucking air of devil around me. Fucking, there's some air of dark devil fucking shit going down in this fucking place. This kid's a right old boy anyway." So I went, "All right, lovely." And he looked at me as if to say, "All right, these are all little tests, obviously." Fuck, I don't know what they all meant. It was just bizarre, wasn't it? I said it was bizarre. It was fucking bizarre. We continued on into the living room, and he said, "Oh, here's myself with Mother Teresa." It was. He was even with a picture of Mother Teresa. "Here's me with Clinton. There's me with..." It fucking was. Pictured with Clinton, an airplane in the back, jets and fucking this and that. He's with all these people, fucking all these leaders of the world. Fucking, "Here's my family," all on the table, and set out picture frames, all these photos. The Pope, fucking Pope he had as well. These people wouldn't have none of his shit. I'm not having none of his shit, but these people definitely wouldn't have none of his shit. He's got to be something to do with something. I just felt uneasy. So I sort of thanked him for lunch and got out of there as quick as I fucking could before being locked in that fucking devil room, whatever it was he was going to do with me. Anyway, I've included that element because it's just one of those fucking strange things, and it comes back later on. As I was driving away, I'm thinking, what is this? Illuminati? I pondered for a bit. You know, I had nothing to think about without fucking trying to imagine a fucking Illuminati or any of it. Thing of Jews fucking corrupting the earth and the Christians fucking devilish ways to fucking undo the Christianity. All this fucking other shit was going on. Oh, I just thought, what a fucking... I thought I had some fucking shit to do with you fucking, all your nonsense. Anyway, having experienced all these strange legal issues, remember at this same time, in parallel, I've got Tara to deal with. I want to see my daughter. Trying hard to fight to have joint residency, as it was called. It's contact, see her. My own experiences of injustice, family injustice, all sorts of injustice, corruption, malfeasance, people fucking about. I just thought, I've got to try and sort this out. My mum and I, continued sticky labels and trying to make something of this case, looking through the pages, the unused, the non-sensitive, the sensitive. We learnt those phrases, unused material, so material that wasn't of use to the defence or the prosecution is filed and tabbed. Non-sensitive, Sensitive you wouldn't get to see because that's judges only, senior counsel. And I started reading a bit more about the committal documents, statements. We had Michelle Brand saying that the police wrote a statement for her, didn't show her, got her to read it, pressured her into writing it. Got Wicks, who's admitting to the murder in his handwritten letters, but Paul Harris hiding all the above, not doing anything, got it and not doing anything about it. As I'm flicking through files we picked up from Paul Martin, you remember Paul Martin, Craig Wicks' lawyer, who didn't tell me that he was his lawyer, allowed me to bail his client, Giovanni, pretending to be a solicitor, working with, in partnership with, according to the heady paper, Paul Martin. Took 10 grand, did do fuck all. I skipped through them quickly. They're all there. Still there. It's all part of the same story. Now, in these files, I found a statement that it stood out to me because it was handwritten. Never seen it. And it was from a Dr. Stark, a report. Now, the police wanted to get evidence of support against the defence claim of automatism. So they went to the most senior forensic medical examiner that they had, Dr. Margaret Stark, and they asked her to read all of the defence documents and give her a report and an opinion. This document was buried, hidden, not in the use, not in the own use, not scheduled, it just appeared. It wasn't referenced anywhere. In Dr. Margaret Stark's report, she agreed with the defence case. She agreed. Paradoxical reaction to the combination of drink and drugs. The most senior police forensic medical examiner agreed with the defence case. That would have fucked them. Fucked the whole case. Buried it. Police buried it. I'd got hold of it. Someone had it. Paul Harris would have had it. Because that's where all these papers arrived from. It was because of her evidence that she was ousted. And Dr. Ian Highmarch, a pharmacologist, was brought in because his view was there to destroy and torpedo the defence case. Listen in to each episode as I engage you in my personal journey of how a boy growing up on a council estate in Essex would eventually own the most exclusive online private members club in the world.